Well, welcome to our latest video interview for the buyer. And today, very pleased to be heading off to Romania and to Philip Cox and Cramele Recas in Romania. How are you, Philip?
Good, thank you. Nice and sunny here. We're happy harvesting grapes.
Well, you got a nice blue sky behind you there.
It's true. It's real.
It's blue sky every day in Romania.
It is at the moment.
Yeah, and in the UK we have your UK director Matt Johnson. How are you, Matt? You all right?
Very well, thank you, Richard.
Yeah,
here, as you know.
Yeah, exactly. So how are you finding things and working through the world of Zoom and remote working? And I guess with you being a Romanian, you being in the UK, is what you do all the time.
Definitely for me, I don't know about Matt, for me it's traveling less, so I think it allows us to do more work actually.
Yeah.
We've never used these video conference and things until now, and obviously it's a bit difficult for tastings and things, but we've done a few online tastings.
Yeah.
But yeah, we keep up with all our customers and it seems to be going all right. It hasn't affected sales or anything. I was a bit worried that the wine fairs not being held would affect our business.
Yeah.
Because it's a sort of exchange of ideas with people and they find things out about you which they otherwise wouldn't know. But we've been keeping up like this and I'm impressed so far. It's going so far so good. Don't know how long it's going to last.
Yeah, and yourself, Matt, how are you finding it? Is there a trade becoming a bit more active, or
yeah, definitely becoming more active in the last 8 to 12 weeks, Richard. I think the challenge for me in the UK, in particular with the on-trade, has been that I haven't been able to get out to particular accounts and regions and work with the sales guys and marketing people and really push our wines and push that agenda. The flip side of that is I've actually had more conversations on email with the buyers. So we're now looking at, projects for next year. So we've seen a dip at the beginning, after COVID started. That's pretty much gone. Last month was our busiest month of the year in terms of actual sales. So that's positive, if I'm honest. So we're looking forward and we're just working differently now.
Yeah, great. So people are actually actively looking forward as opposed to sort of far and just dealing with the week-to-week stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. That wasn't the case a couple of months ago, but it is very much the case now. They are looking at, they're not doing new listings, obviously, that kind of thing, to a great degree, but they are looking at, the beginning of next year, the summer next year, and onwards, basically. Okay,
great. So perhaps before we dive into all that, I mean, Philip, do you want to just sort of, for those who don't know Cramele Recas, as well as perhaps they ought to, do you want to just give us a sort of quick background to the business and how you find yourself to where you are now?
Okay, sure. Yeah, we're not that famous yet, so we need a bit of storytelling. So we started this back in 1998. Prior to that, I was working with my wife Elvira for Recas, which is a very big German wine company that makes Black Tower. Many people know it. And that was a good start for us when we were young, straight out of university, taught us a lot about wine. So in 1998, we decided to start our own business. And we, with two Romanian partners, George and John, we bought a former state sort of cooperative winery, which at the time had 600 odd hectares. Cramele Recas, it's called. So spent 50 million euros and 20 years making it look nice.
Okay.
And at the time we bought it, it didn't have any sort of business. It was just making bulk wine and selling grapes. And now it's I think it's the largest privately owned winery in Eastern Europe. It's definitely the largest in Romania. Mm-hmm. And so about 30 million bottles per year we sell now. 1,250 hectares of vineyards we have. It's about 50 million euros per year of sales last year. And hopefully it'll be a bit more this year. We're working on it.
Yeah.
And it's evolved. Because we started off not having any business at all, we had to make a very aggressive value for money argument for our customers. So go out and find customers aggressively, listen to them, do what they wanted. And so we do a lot of what I would call exclusive brands for many customers around the world, different ones for different countries, and really pay a lot of attention to doing what customers think will sell in each market and adapting the packaging and the wine. And it seems to have worked. Yes, it definitely works. And it might be a good thing because we're not having all that heritage and long sort of history like some wineries do. We were able to adapt everything we do to be sort of market oriented. We have very good winemakers from all over the world, mainly Australians and New World style winemakers. We can do a lot of different styles of wine. Good technology in the winery and the vineyards to be able to do that. And that's what we do. We try and do what customers want.
Yeah, and I suppose that, as you say, that sort of your, well, not exactly a new kid in the block, but because you haven't got experience in the past to say, oh no, that's not how we do things. You're clearly very open to go down that whole own label and private label route.
Yeah, I've worked in other countries like I've worked in Germany in the wine industry. I've worked in Hungary, and I know a lot of French and Italian winemakers, and it can be a stumbling block for a lot of people. All the being linked very strongly to a well-known style of wine or a well-known appellation or a sort of historical way of doing things makes it very difficult to change things. When I was making wine in Hungary, it was very hard to get them to do things in a different way. And in Germany, they all said, this is how we do it. And wine is a massively evolving technology in Britain, first of all, but also market. And it's changing every year, changed in the last 5 years, changed a lot. The way we make the wine, the way we sell it, the styles of wine we're making, it's constantly, so being able to keep that all up to date and keep up with the times is important.
Would you say going back to that sort of the production level, have you moved more towards doing bespoke projects as opposed to creating wine for the bulk market? Are you doing more now for bespoke, or what's the sort of balance between what you're providing on bulk and what you're providing?
Don't sell bulk. No bulk. Everything we sell is bottled wine.
Okay, sorry. All right.
So, but all our wines, I think, are bespoke because they're all designed for the markets where they go to, both the wine and the packaging. So I think we have about 250 labels right now.
Right.
Goes up and down a bit. And every single one is, like we have completely different labels in Romania than we do in England, and different styles of wine too. So the Romanian market, they tend to drink more, a lot of rosé at the moment. It's a huge thing here. They drink a lot more medium dry, medium sweet wines. Other countries like Japan, they're massive about orange wines and sustainable natural wines. The English seem to be peculiarly interested in Pinot Noir and Pinot Grigio. It's it's pretty specific to England. It doesn't seem to happen in other countries. I don't know. Yeah. Germans like Sauvignon Blanc. It's all, they try to do each one what they want.
Yeah, and has it taken a while for those country differences to become apparent, or has it been a case of working with different customers and then seeing what people want and adapting to your production to their needs?
The hard thing is finding the right customers in every country. That takes a long time. It's slow and takes time to build up trust with people and to show them that you can do what you promise. Romania's not got a natural market like, say, French wine has, because we don't have the history. So we constantly have to justify our wines to people and say, we can do this wine better because of X, Y, and Z. It's a better wine, it's a bit cheaper. We can do the right label for your market, or whatever reason it is. So, yeah.
And is that perception changing, do you think? Is the market becoming more aware of what Romania can do?
Depends which country you mean. So some countries are much more, I think in England sorry, not England, Great Britain.
Yeah.
We've attained a better level of awareness than 5 or 10 years ago. Certainly in the trade, maybe not with the public so much, but Germany is picking up, America is picking up. Some countries already knew more about Romania historically. So, for example, Russia and Sweden, Norway, they had Romanian wines historically, know more about them. It's definitely getting better pretty much everywhere.
So Matt, from your point of view, I mean, in terms of how you work the UK market, what when you introduce Cramele Recas, what do you have to go through the whole Romania, what it is, and justifying Romania, or?
Yeah, to a degree. I think if I go back 10 years ago when I first started working with Romanian wine, that was with Howard, Romania. People were just after the cheapest possible wine imaginable. They didn't really care about the story behind the winery, which was an interesting story. But what I've seen evolve over the last 5 years in particular is the people are more interested in the indigenous varietals. Certainly, as Philip's alluded to, Pinot Noir is absolutely massive. We could sell even more than we can sell more than we can produce. Yeah. But you still have to go through that process of explaining about Romania, explaining about, you know, the positive side of the winery, the 6 different winemakers that we've got, the quality, etc. And in particular with the junior buyers, they are genuinely surprised. Yeah. The more senior buyers are aware of it now. So it is a bit of a struggle, but we are getting there. Certainly we've seen a lot of interest in the last 6 months from some new customers, and we've got several new listings coming in early next year, which, that's brand new business with brand new retailers. So we are moving in the right direction.
What would you say, what are the sort of the points that win people over? Is it price ultimately, or is it what's
it's a mixture. It's a mixture. Ultimately we show them the quality of the wines. That it is incredible how people are genuinely surprised when they taste the wine. We did a tasting with a number of journalists earlier right at the beginning of lockdown virtually, wasn't it, Philip? And there was genuine surprise from a lot of them as to the quality level. And as long as I can get wines in front of people, that's absolutely the key thing. And then we back it up with really competitive pricing, great packaging, and then obviously all the relevant accreditations and so on and so forth that we've got. It is a challenge. People still think it's a backward country. That's the problem, which is far from the truth. When you think their Wi-Fi is better than ours, well, significantly better, as you experienced yourself last week, Richard. It's people are genuinely surprised at how advanced the country is once you can actually talk to them about it.
Yeah. So, Phil, do you think, because you work in so many different European markets, international markets, that expertise or knowledge of working with so many different customers in other countries, does that give you a kind of more of an edge in a way to be able to talk to buyers and being able to be flexible enough to what they might want?
Because I'm old, isn't it? You're saying I'm old. I've been doing it a long time. Yes. Yeah. People in the real wine business, people that are professional wine buyers especially, react very well to the idea that the person they're talking to knows what they're doing. It's very important for them. Nobody wants to mess around with kind of amateur. Nobody has time for that. So it's important. Just the fact that if you give people a list of the companies that we work with and the sort of way we work, that tends to help sell the wine itself. I'm not saying we don't need salespeople, but it's an important part of the story to be able to show that you have a lot of experience at working to the standards of all these big companies that we work with. Most of them have very high standards, not just quality of the wine, but the consistency, packaging, ethical standards, sustainability now is becoming very important. We get people from America that are asking us about where we get our electricity now, and luckily 60% of our electricity is renewable, not because of what we did, that's just Romania. So which is good. Then, waste management. We get asked about waste management surprisingly much. But it's good to have all of that.
Answer into what Richard was asking about whether the other countries have kind of influenced what we're doing. I think the Japan thing's quite a good example, though, isn't it? Where the orange wine has grown to such a degree, and we've used that knowledge to then grow it in the UK to a degree.
Yeah, for sure. So, and our customers in Netherlands also are specialized in sustainable wines, bio, natural, and that's helped us launch the same sort of products in England as well. And sometimes it happens the other way around. Like we started off doing different size formats in the UK. We did half bottles for Aldi in England. And then we ended up selling that in other countries. So we started doing it for Aldi in Germany now.
Yeah.
So yeah, good ideas. People are always looking for good ideas. They're always happy to nick them.
Yeah. And I guess that I mean, I'm working with monopolies in Scandinavia, and as you say, working in America, there's so much more demand way beyond just what's in the bottle of wine, isn't it? So it's the whole supply chain behind it all.
It's complicated. It's important to be professional about delivering it quick. People don't have time to muck around. A lot of countries that have just-in-time supply chains. Packaging has to be ecological, has to be light, especially for the markets which are further away, whereas carbon footprints are very important now. Transport costs. It's a whole lot of things. It's complicated.
Yeah.
The supply chain thing's become more relevant for the UK as well, hasn't it? With using transmodal now instead of just trucks. Yeah. So they can pack more in. We can get really competitive pricing, and a lot of our bigger on-trade customers, they will order in full loads now, as opposed to 8 or 12 pallets at a time. So, that's been a change I've seen in the last 6 to 9 months or so.
Really? So, I mean, obviously we need to bring up the dreaded COVID situation, but I mean, do you want to perhaps comment a little bit on that, and has that experience, your international experience, helped you as well in terms of how you managed to deal with the last 6 to 9 months?
I think sales-wise, it's been helped. We've been lucky, really. I can't say it's something we planned. We've been lucky in that our international wine business is more skewed towards off-trade than it is on-trade. That's just pure luck. It's not something we decided to do. So, and the off-trade, so big supermarkets have actually grown this last 6 months because I think people are obviously staying at home more and looking for wines that they already know about, not being maybe so adventurous. And where we've had bigger brands in bigger shops, they've grown a lot this year. But online has grown a lot. Direct to consumer business has grown a lot. We have 121 shops in Romania, and that business has grown too. So selling. On the other hand, we've all the restaurant business in the whole world has died suddenly, and it's just starting to come back now. I think England is actually the slowest to start coming back because of your peculiar way of treating the health crisis. Took a lot longer to get the restaurants open there, but it's happening slowly. Yeah. So it hasn't been bad for us. So I think overall, our overall sales are up in the first 8 months of this year, like 5 or 10%. Export sales are up more than the local market because the local market, we have more restaurant business, more HoReCa business. Catering is very important here in Romania. They like to have big weddings. That's all stopped. Some of our regional customers in England have all been shut down because they do restaurants and pubs, so that's been a bit slow. That's a polite way of putting it. They stopped for 3 months.
And they started ordering, and that's
they're going again.
6 to 8 weeks ago, they started ordering again, and
I suspect the Chancellor's eating out to help out thing has helped us out a bit. Seems to have picked up a bit in the last few weeks. But overall, it could have been a lot worse. It's not going to be a great year, but it could have been a lot worse.
Yeah, but also I suppose if you want to have a test case to assess how good your international logistics are, then you know you've obviously been through the last 6 months and got a big tick, I suppose, which must be to some extent reassuring that you're able to carry on trading through all this.
We're very glad that we have a wide and diverse customer base. That's one of the things that I've always thought was important, having a lot of eggs in a lot of baskets.
Yeah.
That's turned out to be very true. And for logistics, we have moved a lot more to trains and ships than we used to do with road transport, which is probably a good thing anyway. So, yeah, I think everything has worked pretty well. It's been difficult here at the winery. We had to shut the bottling for a while because of, you know, the risks were quite high. We had to change the shifts and everything. Yeah. We had to shut our tourism business, which isn't very nice. We can't have tastings, and we had 30,000 tourists last year. Right. So that's all gone. And that's very important for image reasons, you know, people finding out about the company. But shouldn't complain. A lot of people are a lot worse off. Poor people in South Africa have had it a whole lot worse than us. So,
of course, yeah. And you think that, I mean, you mentioned, Matt, that you're seeing a lot more interest now for the next sort of 6 months, and also going into 2021, which is obviously very encouraging. What are you seeing? What kind of trends are you seeing there in terms of the kind of wines and projects that people are wanting to work with you on?
Very similar to what we've been doing in the past, Richard, but also some more interest in indigenous varieties. So again, the exclusive labels, you know, Pinot Noir, Pinot Grigio, Merlot, Sauvignon Blanc. This is just totally focused on the on-trade, ignore the off-trade for a second. But then also split varietals, so where we're mixing Sauvignon Blanc and Fetiasca Regala. So there's, you know, consumer safety in using a variety that people know, but then also a bit of experimentation, putting Fetiasca Regala, things like that. But it is all, you know, what we specialize in, which is creating exclusive labels with a great backstory, and that's really interesting and innovative, and that's what we're seeing happening, basically.
What kind of customers, if you don't say specifics, but what kind of customers are they that you're seeing?
Multiple on-trade operators, from, you know, smaller multiple on-trade operators to the bigger ones, and everything in between, really. People that we haven't necessarily we haven't sold anything to in the past, but we've been in touch with over the last, you know, 2 or 3 years, well, before my time as well, that are now coming to us and saying, actually, yeah, I've seen this, this, and this. What can you do for us? We had quite a lot of meetings lined up for Provine with several new customers, which obviously didn't happen. That then went quiet as they all went on furlough, and as they've started to come back, you know, one particular big, very good on-trade operator this week got in touch, which was great. So keeping in touch with them throughout the lockdown has been imperative, and doing as much marketing and talking to people as we possibly can, Richard, just to keep people interested, has led to these new opportunities.
I do think we've done a lot of, we did a lot, instead of the London Wine Fair, for example, we did a whole lot of Zoom tastings and press things.
Yeah. That worked.
And I've noticed since then that even some big supermarkets and hard discounters have started taking on more local varieties, for example. And I do wonder if it's linked. It might be just a complete fluke, but there's definitely more interest in local varieties. Rosé seems to be popular for next year, pale rosés. All the sustainable wines. We're just becoming certified for organic at the moment this week, which is complicated. So we'll be doing a few of our natural wines as certified bio for next year, which seems to be a growing part of the market. So there's definitely an interest in all that sort of thing. Non-dry farmed wines is a thing, especially for America. It's becoming important to not be irrigated, which is easy for us. There's no irrigated vineyards here. So yeah, I think the way we've been working through by the internet has helped all of that.
Yeah, and I suppose actually a lot of people have said, haven't they, that quite a few of the trends that were very active before COVID, in a way, have actually accelerated drawing in because people have
Yeah.
been, as you say, at home and they've been more willing to trade up and try different wines. And I suppose, all the things that you mentioned there, everything from the environment through to rosés and organics and different formats even, it's all those things are very much what you were doing beforehand. So I guess you've been well placed to.
We were starting them, but we're accelerating them now. And what the young people say, DTC, direct to consumer thing. So we've been. I'm too old for that. One of my sales people was telling me about that. I thought it was a brand of shoes or something. We've got to do more DTCs. But we've been working with Virgin Wines for years, and that's boomed this year. It's really gone really well. Just doing some new products for them this week, actually. And with young Matthew here and his cohort, what can you call him? His partner, Alex, we're planning to do much more direct to consumer of our own next year. So we're working on many ways of doing that. We work with Amazon in Germany, for example, and some other countries. So that's definitely a thing which the lockdown has definitely pushed forward for sure. So we have to pay.
Is that you doing direct to consumer or working with the likes of?
Yeah, no, we will look at doing both, Richard. But we, Alex Green and I have set up a new business in the last month called Beyond Wines. Alex has only just left Freshnet Copestick, and Philip's very heavily involved in this business, and we're going to use it. It's basically doubled our sales force in the UK, and part of that business, which will be very similar to what Copestick Murray used to do, will be to sell direct to consumers, because it's imperative that we get some of the wines that may be more difficult to sell to the retailers, mid-level, mid to premium, but also sell some other brands that don't conflict, obviously, with our existing retailers.
Yeah, and potentially, is that a route where you can actually showcase or trial some of these, what you might call more difficult wines, but if they work in that channel, I guess that gives you a reason to go and talk to some other customers and say, well, why don't we do an alternative with you?
Yes, absolutely the idea. Absolutely spot on.
Right, well, there you go.
I've literally got nothing else to add, Richard. You covered that perfectly.
Yeah, do you see certain markets that you work with are more at the forefront of this than others, or do you find other markets kind of like look to see what works in the UK, what's working in America, what's working in Japan, and then follow, or is everyone doing slightly different things?
It's quite different to within different countries. So I think Germany is more advanced than England in online selling, direct to consumer selling.
Yeah.
Certainly with our wines. Ireland is quite advanced in that for some reason, maybe because they don't have so many big cities, I don't know. Japan is more traditional, sort of bricks and mortar. America is very mixed. Different states have different ways of doing it, but it's everywhere. It's taking off. It's going to be a big thing, and especially in the countries with very high cost levels, high salaries, high rents, like Great Britain, United Kingdom. So that will, I'm sure it will become a big thing in England. It's bad news for bricks and mortar stores, but it's definitely going to accelerate a lot now. So we have to be careful. We have to pay attention to it. It's a good way of getting direct feedback from the customers. That's one of the things that we like to see, what they like, see what's working, what's not. And sometimes the trade buyers can be a bit risk averse, so they won't maybe try something like local variety, because it just feels too risky to them. But whereas consumers actually love them, and where we have managed to get them in front of consumers, they've gone very well. Sometimes it's a bit of a struggle to get through the gatekeepers. So having our own direct to consumer and companies like Virgin and Amazon and whatever is also a good way of doing it.
Yeah, and as part of that, I mean, and obviously we're still very much. I mean, people talk about a second wave of COVID, but you could argue we're still probably in the first wave of COVID. I mean, is part of that as well, sort of protecting your business over the next 18 months or so in terms of what might happen over the next few months, really, in terms of all these changes and direct to consumer becoming more important.
I think it's going to be permanent. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think things are going to go back to quite how they were before in any sector of the market. So I think people will be buying more online generally, doing more with their phones. The on trade will be different as well. The way people eat out, I think it will go through some convulsions, and it might be a good thing at the end. The wine industry is having big convulsions, and it might turn out not to be a bad thing. There are definitely too many wineries in the world. There's more wineries than anyone needs. There's more wine. So a few of them will probably drop out, and the ones which survive will have to be more consumer focused and more strong and more up to date. So that might not be a bad thing, I think, permanently going forwards.
Yeah, more market focused, more consumer focused, and work back from there.
That's the way. It's the only way that works.
Absolutely. I mean, the other horrible word we don't really want to mention, but we have to, is Brexit. And I know you've been very vocal and been very agenda setting, really, in terms of informing the trade here about what's coming down the
activist. I'm an activist.
Yeah. Well,
I just got off, before I was on with you, I was talking to the parliamentary committee about it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was giving evidence to the parliamentary committee on post-Brexit wine documents.
All right. Well,
and trying to convince them to keep it to a minimum.
Yeah. Well, what kind of feedback do you get from them? Was it more you giving them evidence rather than them talking to you?
Is this where we're allowed to swear? They some of them are very, very out of touch with real business.
Yeah.
Most of them actually. They I was trying to tell them that, you know, the current set of documentation with the English government is planning to introduce, plus the tariffs, plus all the customs declarations and other things, new labeling requirements, it's going to cost 20-30p a bottle.
Mm-hmm.
And probably if you're a multi-millionaire MP, it doesn't sound like a lot, but considering that most people drink wine which is less than £6 a bottle, and 20p on the cost price probably ends up adding 50p to the final price. It's a big thing, both for the low priced wines. It's an even worse thing for fine wines who rely on shipping very small quantities, which will now need a huge number of documents. Like they will have to send each shipment of Chateau Petrus, they'll have to open one and get it analyzed.
Yeah.
And that's going to make them a huge amount of problems. So I didn't feel that the members of parliament are particularly worried about it, really. They have other things that they're thinking about. I don't know what they're thinking of. Don't ask me.
So, yeah. So in terms of how you look at your business plan for the next 6-9 months, I mean, what are you doing? I mean, are you sort of like hoping that things will change, or are you trying to, or is that part of the reason why you are trying to go more to direct to consumer? Or what are the things you can do to help you?
Well, one of the things is that we, you know, even though it seems worrying and depressing, it's definitely going to change the way everyone does business to the wine industry in England. Yeah. We see it as not necessarily the end of the road. We see it as we have to work with it as a possible, you know, they say every kick in the teeth is a push in the right direction. So it's going to make it more difficult. That might stop. We think it will stop a lot of smaller wineries and less professional outfits from trading with England, because
Yeah.
the paperwork is a real handful to actually do. It's expensive and difficult, takes time. So we think it might reduce the amount of suppliers on the market, which is not a bad thing. We think it will make customers, the fact that the English people are, I think are going to be poorer and faced with a severely downturn economy, which they already are this year, but next year will be even worse. That not necessarily a bad thing. Last time there was an economic crisis in England, we actually sold more wine there because people are much more focused on looking for real value.
Yeah.
When they have less money, and all the commercial traders are having to provide their customers with much more bang for their buck. So they really have to pay a lot of attention to find good value for money wines, which we are good at, I think. Mm-hmm. And also, we've lived in a isolated country that was cut off from the rest of Europe. It happened when I came here to Romania. That's what it was like. So I think that gives us some insights, you know, working with crazy dictators too. Governments which don't necessarily do things which are good for their country. We've had all of that. So
you can at least empathize. You can sell wines for us and empathize at the same time.
But there are opportunities in it too. One thing is, for example, what we're doing with Matt and Alex, we foresee that the traditional agency and importer business, which has been the staple of the English wine business for hundreds of years, is really under a lot of pressure, not to say completely finished. So we've set up this thing with Matt here to try and cut some of the wastage out of the loop. There's no room. You have to make everything very lean, very efficient. Cut out, you know, unneeded storage, unneeded transport costs.
But and I guess with your experience working in the different markets, it's that you're arguably a little bit more, as you say, you're very market focused. You're very market driven. So I suppose you're probably more aware of the need to be changing the way you work than perhaps some of your competitors who you might be standing next to at Provine normally.
I honestly think that most European wine producers have absolutely no idea what all the post-Brexit documentation is going to be like. But we traded with the European Union from outside it before Romania joined in 2007. So we did all that documentation. We know what it is, and we can do it if we're forced to. I am trying to get them to stop it, but I don't think we're getting very far. So we can do it. We're good at that. We have enough people that can do it. Yeah. But it will be a shock for the rest of the wine industry, I think. Most of them, I think, are sort of betting that the English will give up on what they're planning at the moment. I don't know. I see all the things that, like the stuff they put out today, doesn't really encourage me. Doesn't look like they want to give up.
Going back to the UK, so in terms of the smaller customers, Richard, where we, you know, if we do have to create exclusive label, we do have to create labels specifically for that one customer. We'll start to hold some UK stock to get over that, which will help enormously. That basically, Philip will then, you know, although I'm working directly for Philip, our company will then be in a position to manage the process for those individual customers within the UK. So they'll have people on the ground in the UK, myself and Alex, and then Philip obviously in Romania. So we just make this as smooth as possible, lean, efficient, and we basically take any aggro out of it for the retailer, whoever that might be it on trade or off trade. So that's the plan with the new company, or part of the plan with the new company.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like, I mean, the dust is very far from settling on this, but where, you know, looking forward, arguably it's the business model as well as your wine range that's going to be really important in the weeks to come. It's not just saying, I've got a Pinot Noir at £6, you know, do you like it or not? It's more the whole infrastructure, the business model of how you're then going to work with that customer to get that wine on the shelf or on a wine list.
Absolutely. Absolutely key. Always, I mean, it has been for the last decade, really, hasn't it? And anybody who doesn't realise that it has struggled and probably doesn't exist anymore. And you know, we'll continue that. But it's imperative that we're innovative, that we're lean, we're quick, but also extraordinarily efficient with great wine. So you know, that's what we're always aiming at.
Yeah, but interesting. I mean, you said that over the last 10 years, there's still been a lot of the perhaps more traditional importers who have been able to keep on finding ways to keep going. But perhaps the experience of COVID and Brexit in the same year is really going to put even more onus on people changing or dramatically changing the way they work.
It's definitely going to, I think, if we talk in a year's time or a year and a half, I think the wine industry will look very different. It's a huge double whammy situation right now for the British wine industry anyway. So, but if we can be, like Matt said, efficient, and we know how to do it, we can do it. The people that will succeed are the ones that can make it work.
Yeah.
There's no point moaning about it now. I've done all the moaning about it 2 or 3 years ago. And it's going to happen, all of this, whether we like it or not. So we just have to try and make it work.
Okay. Well, but
and I don't think, by the way, that the date of the 1st of January next year is necessarily the end of the story.
Not at all.
Everyone thinks that's, you know, they're going to have to, even if your government gets its wish to have a sort of dramatic Donald Trump moment, after that, they will still have to come to sort of a better working relationship with Europe. Once they've satisfied their voters, it's still going to go on. The talks will go on, and we're lobbying them to make it as smooth as possible. It's not in anyone's interest really to make things difficult. So we have to make it work.
Yeah, I mean, and you're very much committed to the UK for the long term, aren't you? I suppose.
We are trying.
Say that. I was going to say, could you say that with more feeling, please, Philip?
You're trying to be committed to the UK for the long term.
Yes, he is. He definitely is. He definitely.
I wouldn't. We wouldn't just start our own office there if we didn't think we were going to carry on there.
Of course not. No.
It's sad for me because it didn't need to happen, all of this, and it's really unhelpful for businesses. But there are a lot of other businesses much worse off. And I wouldn't like to be in the car industry right now or something like, or the banking industry, for example. I don't feel sorry for bankers generally.
Yeah.
But,
stop now.
Well, perhaps on a more positive note before we finish. I mean, in terms of what you're doing in the vineyards and what you're doing from a winemaking point of view, I mean, what are the big changes, and what do you see yourself investing more in or wanting to concentrate more on in the years to come?
So we've been trying very hard this year in the last 3-4 years, to make everything more low intervention. So we've cut out a lot of unnecessary additions to the wines. I think there's a great interest by young consumers about what goes into what they eat and drink. I want to start putting ingredient labeling on our wines this year, because we don't put much in them, and the stuff that we do use to make the wine we think is quite natural. It's nothing synthetic or chemical really. So we want to put that on the labels. We want to convince customers that our wines are sustainable. That's a big thing. That's one of the things that came out of that, is that we made all of our wines vegan last year or the year before. So that was quite a big step, and it's been good. So that's definitely a trend. More ecological, with changing our fleet of cars to all electric cars. We've got 5 at the moment, but we're changing the rest of them over the next couple of years to electric and hybrids. So all that environmental sustainability. The natural wine and the organic and bio, I think is quite important. So we're doing more and more of that. Like I said, this year we're getting certified for bio. We're doing our first set of orange wines which are made in amphoras, which is a bit of a thing at the moment, using amphoras.
Yeah.
It gets people interested. Winemakers will argue about whether it's better for the wine or not, but the important thing is connecting with the consumers about it. And there's
Yeah.
definitely consumers interested in it. And some countries more than others, but they all want the idea of natural wines and less man-made manipulation with their food products or drink products. So working very hard on that. And then we've just been expanding to keep up. So we planted 250 hectares in the last couple of years, been buying more land, planting vineyards, built 2 new wineries last year, about 7 million litre capacity. So we just keep up with volume. Yeah, our sales has doubled in the last 4 years. So we have to keep building to keep up with it. We're just planning much more efficient bottling line for 2022. We just did the last one 3 years ago. We've got to build another one, all with robots, no people involved. So
Good.
a lot going on. Yeah, spending a lot of money. But
What's the attitude?
what's what?
If you build it, they will come. I think. If you build it, they will come.
It's more like, no, in our case, it's more like they've already come and we need to build it to keep up. that's what's happening.
That's very good.
Yeah, it seems to work. And obviously we need to do more. We need to do more. We're planning to invest more in communication too. And you're part of the industry, so we haven't been very good at that. And we are planning, when we can, to do a lot more communication, tastings, events, visitors. You have to come here. Matthew hasn't been here for months because he can't go anywhere. So getting more people to find out about Romania is important. We're doing an association with the wineries from the west of the country, from Transylvania. So we're planning on doing some generic joint promotion together to get people finding out more about the country. So we have to work on a lot of fronts, but it's all good.
Well, as I say, there aren't as many market-driven wineries as yourself. So I think people like myself and the trade obviously, but people like myself would, can learn a lot from what you're doing, and it's great to hear. So, Matt, can I final word for yourself? I mean, just your sort of thoughts on the UK going forward, and with the new business, what your kind of key objectives are for the next few months.
That's a really good question. Quite a lot going on, obviously. We've talked about the new listings that are happening with Recas. So we formed the new company, 3-4 weeks ago. Alex started as soon as he finished with Freshnet. Our plan is lots of innovation, Richard, hell of a lot of innovation stuff I'd love to tell you about now, but I'm not going to, obviously. But, one thing in particular that we're looking at is linking the on-trade and the off-trade, and trying to come up with a product or products that can cross over into both sectors, that works for both sectors and makes money for both. And that's something that Alex is very passionate about. We're looking at Philip for some of the juice and some other areas as well. That's one thing. It's to consolidate our existing business in the UK, keep pushing the on-trade this year, and then to continue to grow it as we have done in the last 9 to 12 months. And I see no reason why we can't do that. It's been rough the last 6 months, and we've had to change how we work, and we'll continue to change and adapt according to what we need to do to continue to do our job well. I think that's it, really, Richard.
Good. All right. And yourself, Philip, the final word to you. I mean, do you look? Obviously, you've been through a lot of change over the last 10, 15, 20 years, even. Looking ahead, I mean, are you optimistic, pessimistic about what lies ahead?
No, I'm very optimistic. I see a lot of development in a lot of different markets. Our biggest markets at the moment is Germany and Netherlands. They're growing great guns. I think England will increase a lot in the next couple of years. We have a lot of projects for next year, which we can tell you about in January. Yeah. You'll see they're already set up, and we will do more. And I'm excited about this direct-to-consumer thing. I think we want to work a lot on modernizing the packaging of wine as well. I personally believe that we have to learn from the gin industry and the perfume industry, and I think wine packaging is a bit boring. We need to do a lot more to make it more pizzazz, and that's something we're working on, and we're getting going on soon. So yeah, I'm optimistic. I see a lot of ways of growth. I think we want to focus more on the more sustainable products, the natural products, the local varieties, stuff that we can do, and more of less sort of commodity. We don't really want to be competing sort of the lowest common denominator products. We want to be doing more value added wines that taste great but look great, but are also interesting for people. I think there's a good market for that. It's developing. Yeah.
Great. Okay.
I'm optimistic.
Well,
yes, I'm optimistic.
Excellent. Well, thanks for sharing your story today, and wish you all the best. And I've been watching your career for many a year, and you're always many steps ahead of many other people. So it's good to hear you in person. So
I do wonder
thanks
if
to you, Philip, and
I'm thinking too many things at the same time. I have a lot going on. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you for having us.
Okay then. Thanks for having us. Okay, thank you.
Come and see us. Bye. Take care.